If I may now move on to a slightly different topic, and if I may ask and mention the very person I think that make it possible for all of us to be gathering here tonight, and that is Mr. Deng Xiaoping, someone you've known well over the years. Your old friend, Dr. Henry Kissinger, has launched a book entitled On China. In that book, not for the first time, he described Deng Xiaoping as one of the greatest men in the 21st century. The renowned Harvard professor, Professor Ezra Vogel, devoted an entire book entitled Deng Xiaoping and the Transformation of China. Have you thought about writing a book on China? I'm sure many people all over the world will hugely benefit from your insights into that great civilization.
It will take too much effort, and I'm 88 years old. To write a book, you have to stay awake 3 or 4 hours every night and work on it for about 1-2 years. Then you've got a good book.
Yes. I'm sure there will be no shortage of people who will be happy to do the research for you.
But I have to do the writing.
What might be motivating for you enough to consider such a proposition?
No, I think there are enough books on China, and my opinion will be just another view which is not very different from many of the views already expressed. That China will be a very powerful nation is obvious. Her GDP will grow, her people will be well educated, her armed forces will grow, Navy, Air Force, Army, and the consequences of that growth will mean that the western side of the Pacific will be a shared area of influence between the Americans and the Chinese. But the economic influence will be stronger on the Chinese side because of their 1.3 billion customers. The Americans cannot match that. Today they can because the 340 million customers have high purchasing power, but the Chinese 1.3 billion people will have every year increased purchasing power.
Thank you. But if I may not quickly give up on the subject of Deng Xiaoping still, if you hypothetically were to write a book about Deng Xiaoping, what can you tell us about the man whom you have said is the man that you most admire?
Well, he is a small, physically small man, but a giant of a leader. Decisive, weighs his options carefully, makes a decision and sticks to it. And I think but for him, China may well have gone down the drain because he reversed the course that China was taking, which was to exclude the world. And I believe his visit to Singapore in '78 helped to move him towards the international economy, because he could see that a small island without resources was able to get on with and get a good life with foreign investments, bringing in foreign skills, management, technical skills, and we produce the educated people to take over from them. So that changed his mind about opening up, and he opened up China. He came here in November. In December, he had about 6 or 7 coastal provinces, coastal cities, become free trade zones.
Special economic zone.
Yeah, special economic zone. Then they succeeded. And under Zhu Rongxi, they joined WTO and made China, the whole of China, open to all investments. And that accounts for the vibrancy of the Chinese economy today. Had they closed up and continued to close up, there would have been a stagnant economy. Trying to do reverse engineering of what they see is happening in the West. Whereas with the open system, the investments bring the technology and bring the skilled workers and the management, and the Chinese have to educate their people and learn from, working with and learning from the foreign workers, and they do that very quickly. So he was a decisive leader who saw the way he could shortcut the learning process instead of trying to do it all by themselves through reverse engineering.
Thank you. What do you recall that has made impression on you when you met Deng Xiaoping for the very first time?
He is a very careful, thoughtful man. When I was sending him off to the airport, Vietnam was about to attack Cambodia, and we had discussed it the night before at dinner. So I said to him, how far does Vietnam have to go before you will intervene?
Mm-hmm. And he said,
it depends how far they go. But the impression I got was, once they cross Tonle Sap into the Mekong, the Chinese will intervene and punish them, which ultimately they did. He's not a man who lightly issues threats, because after he came to Singapore, he told me, pass this on to the Americans. And then, shortly afterward, he visited America, Washington, to personally tell them, to warn them that he will act. And he did.
So he's a man of his words.
Oh, he's a very careful man. He made up his mind that this was not something China could tolerate, because the Vietnamese wanted the Indo-Chinese Federation of Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and the Chinese are not going to have that. That's that. Full stop.
我们谈到中国的时候，不能够不谈一谈两岸关系啊。And while we had one presidential election coming up in the U.S., there is a slightly smaller scale, a presidential election going to happen in Taiwan in about 100 days' time. There are three aspirants, Ms. Tsai Ing-wen of the DPP, Mr. Ma Ying-jeou of the KMT, and Mr. James Soong, whom you know fairly well, I believe, of the People's First Party. China, of course, is watching political development in Taiwan very closely, and perhaps with some anxiety at the same time. Does it matter who wins the election?
Yes, of course. It makes a very big difference about what happens after that. I mean, if you have a person like Ma Ying-jeou who says, 不同不独不霸, well, then you can continue the relations, and the two sides will economically have more to do with each other to mutual benefit. You have you have Tsai Ing-wen. I think she will try to reverse it. It will be difficult because the Chinese are very wisely buying agricultural products from the south, farmers of the south. But she will try and slow down the process. Song Chu-yi has 15% according to the polls. Tsai Ing-wen and Ma Ying-jeou both have 30%. I don't understand why he thinks he can overtake them. What he can do is to take away votes from Ma Ying-jeou, more than he would take votes from Tsai Ing-wen.
That's right. And so it would be in China's interest to see the KMT win in the next election? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, but China can do nothing about it.
They can give benefits and incentives.
No. He is motivated by his personal desire to become president of Taiwan. He thinks he stands a chance, and is going to try.
Actually, James Soon almost became the president. He came very close.
No, that was the last time, not now.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of cross-strait relations, I mustn't not ask the one question that's on the minds of most people. That is, do you foresee a scenario whereby the Americans will intervene in the event of a Chinese military action against Taiwan?
No,
which is something that the Chinese have never ruled out as an option.
No, I don't see the Americans intervening in Taiwan because, all right, you can intervene this time because the Chinese Navy is not, and Air Force not strong enough. But next time, and next time, and next time, it will never end because for China, Taiwan is a core issue. For America, Taiwan is a peripheral issue. So the contrast between the two of the importance to national interests of Taiwan and the main national interests of America and Taiwan, very different altogether. And if I were an American, I would know that I can go in the first time now and beat the Chinese. But they'll come back. They must come back. You beat them the second time, there's a third time. Finally, one day, you cannot beat them. So what's the point of it?
Is it fair to say that you told the Americans so?
No, I don't think I need to tell the Americans. They can do their own calculations. They can see the speed at which the Chinese are learning to build fighters, stealth fighters, submarines. They can do their calculations. They can estimate what happens in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years. So I think they'll be quite glad. My guess is they'll be quite glad to find a peaceful solution to this and not have to be caught up in a struggle between China and Taiwan.
Thank you. So peace is better than military action.